At this point in time in your life, you're protecting your sister from a gang in Brooklyn. You fought them off successfully, the police didn't get involved, and you get an altercation with a detective.
This gang was kind of following my little sister home, and then they were disrespecting her, and then when I kind of got up there, handled business, and things got rough. So he's just like, well, how do you plead? And I was like, guilty, Your Honor. The judge looks at me, and he's like, all right, well, you're free to go. And I just remember them coming and just taking off my cuffs. It's funny, like I remember just having the cuffs here. Now I got a Rolex on, but there's a payphone in front of the courthouse. I call my mom, and she's like, oh, where's Cesar? Like, what happened, man? I'm like, look, man, I'm gonna go home, and I'm gonna figure stuff out, but I'm leaving New York City. If you got a stirring in your heart, like if you have an unshakable soul, and it's like, I was made for something else, I wanted to change the world, I want to do this, then that's a calling. And you don't want to wait until the end of your life to realize that you didn't live up to the magnitude of your calling that God actually put in your spirit that you never did. Your podcast is called Successful DNA, right? And sometimes things are potentially in your DNA. And one of the things that you learn is how DNA is formed. And the way DNA is formed is these 5 essential nucleotides. And 5 in the Bible is a number of grace.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of Successful DNA. I have my friend here, Cesar Hernandez. Cesar, welcome to the show.
Yes, sir. Bless you, brother. Thank you for having me.
All right. So your story's freaking amazing. I can't wait to our listeners to hear about it. The research I did, I'm probably more excited about this episode than I have any episode. Your story and your family story is insane. So Cesar, first generation American of a Mayan immigrants from the Guatemala's Quiche tribe.
That's it.
Grew up in Brooklyn. We're going to go through his story, but from Brooklyn to a lot in between, and now Tampa, where he's a very successful business that we'll get into. I want to start off at rock bottom. I have a little story here. Just a couple paragraphs, but at this point in time in your life, you're protecting your sister from a gang in Brooklyn. You fought them off successfully, the police didn't get involved, and you get an altercation with a detective. So you go to jail, and then you're in jail in the famous jail complex known as the Tombs because of the lack of windows, and you pray to God to get you out of there. And if he does, you're going to leave Brooklyn. A few days later, you're standing before the judge. You're looking up to 15 years in prison for the charge of aggravated assault on a detective. Someone then steps in from the side and slides the judge a note. After reading it, the judge tells you, hey, man, you're free to go. So then you go and fulfill your promises to the Lord and move to Florida and begin your quest of a personal reinvention. That story alone is crazy, and there's a lot more. That's a small sliver of what you've been through in life. So I got to know, we'll start off with 1, what were you feeling like when you were standing there before the judge? And 2, what'd that note say?
Yeah, I mean, you ran right into it. So I'll give you a little bit of context, right? At that point in my life, I was probably 21, 22, and it was probably like my 7th arrest, right? And it's not necessarily that I'm an evil person, but sometimes your environment is not one that's conducive for growth, right? Where you bump into trouble. And I'm from an era in Brooklyn where that is what happens, right? And when that occurred, and because what happened is you had this gang was kind of following my little sister home, and then they were disrespecting her. And then when I kind of got up there, I kind of handled business, and things got rough. But there was already, we call them DTs, detectives, there was already DTs on my block because they were doing a sting. So they were doing a drug operation, or they were trying to sting on a drug operation that was happening in my building. So somebody was selling like crack out of the basement, right? Like some New Jack City type of vibe. And
that's illegal.
So yeah, it's legal. So they were already there, right? And this whole thing, violent altercation kind of pops off, and this dude runs up on me. He doesn't identify himself, and he's like, "Who are you doing? What you doing?" And I just like threw him off of me. I'm hyped, like I got all this adrenaline in me, and I just threw him off me. And then he pulls out his badge, and this was really stupid. I like slapped his badge, and I spit on him. I can't tell you why I did that, right? I can't. Anger, rage, frustration, my situation, but all it takes is one bad decision. And then that happens, and I get this whole like fisticuffs altercation with the popo, and then before you know it, boop, and everybody kind of comes in, and I'm fighting, and then they grab my sister, they slam her on the floor, so I get enraged, and I just remember just, you know, DTs in Brooklyn, and I'm talking about, this is 2006, 2007, this is very different, right? You have what's called plainclothes cops or plainclothes DTs, so that I didn't know, but one of them had braids, you know, so then I just remember grabbing his braids, and I was like, I'm probably gonna die today, but this one dude's gonna just feel my pain. And in that, this one officer kind of grabs me, and he's almost like whispers in my ear, and he's like, I'm saving your life, and he pepper sprays me, right? But before he did that, I realized that they were backing up to draw on me, right? And so this dude pepper sprays me in the face, and he whispers, I'm saving your life. And then when he pepper sprays me, they all jump on me, get their licks in, threw me in the back of the paddy wagon. Paddy wagon is just what we call a van. And then what's now that I think of it, I just remember this. As I'm leaving, I'm on like Flatbush Avenue, and I'm passing a train station. My mom's coming out the train station. And I'm like in the back of the paddy wagon, we're sitting on my hands with cuffs. And I was just like, man, she's about to come home to a whole world of trouble. So long story short, I get to the precinct in Crown Heights, and I'm there for like 2-3 days where you're not supposed to. You're supposed to be there for a couple hours and then just get processed. But given the situation, I get it. They were trying to make an example of me. And it's so odd because after you've been arrested a couple times, you're not anxious anymore, right? You know, you're just sitting. And I remember I could tell who's been in and out because the ones that were like acting up the most, like climbing the bars, like just acting stupid, right? Just dumb. Climbing bars, screaming at cops. They just waiting it out. And after the course of a time, at the end of like the second, third day, they're like crying, right? So they moved me, they sent me to Central Bookings, and I just remember being in the Tombs at that time and just saying to myself, like, dude, like, how the hell do I keep getting in this situation? Like, how? And I just remember praying, and I don't know if anybody knows what the Tombs is like. It's just a big, it looks like it's literally a tomb, and there's a steel toilet, right? There's no privacy, steel toilet, and everybody's just there, no windows. And so I just remember just being there between the freaking steel toilet and the walls and just saying to myself, man, God, like, Lord, like, if you get me up out of here, Lord, like, I'm leaving New York City because I don't know what's going to be the next thing. And so when that happens to me, they move me because I'm going to go see the judge, right? And the DT that arrested me comes to my cell, and he tells me to put my face up against the bars. And he's like, starts cursing me out, spitting me on the face, like doing all these weird things. And the reason why I tell the story is because one of my issues I used to have clearly was anger. And I just tell you that I felt like when this dude spit on my face and called me spick this, spick that, like I just felt like these hands on my shoulders just calming me and just telling me like, calm down. And I don't remember exactly what I said to the officer, but it was something along the lines of like, look, I'm gonna face my responsibility, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I did. And he was just looked at me perplexed. He was just like, what? And he's like, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna plead guilty, and I'm gonna drop the charges. I was like, okay. A couple hours passed. They sent me to Red Hook, Brooklyn, to see the judge, and I just remember just having my cuffs on, right, and then I'm waiting in line, and they mix you with people coming from bookings and like people that were just showing up to court, right? So then you see like drug addicts, you see people leaning over, drooling on themselves, right? You see like petty crimes, you see the people that are going to Rikers, like it's just like a mix, like they just mix everybody up. And then they call my name. They're like, all right, Hernandez, how do you plead? And I had a conflict because I'm like, if I say guilty and the DT didn't do his side,
Gotcha.
it's a wrap.
Yeah.
If I say not guilty, then I'm getting a public defender, probably gonna still have to go to some kind of holding cell. Maybe I bail out, maybe I don't know. So he's just like, well, how do you plead? And I was like, guilty, Your Honor. And like some movie, like some dude comes out, slips a note, the judge looks at me and he's like, all right, well, you're free to go. And I just remember them coming and just taking off my cuffs. It's funny, like I remember just having the cuffs here. Now I got a Rolex on, but before it was some steel cuffs. And then I get to leave, and there's a payphone. We pay phone a little more, but there's a payphone in front of the courthouse. I call my mom, and she's like, "Oh, where's Cesar? Like, what happened?" And I'm like, "Look, man, I'm gonna go home, and I'm gonna figure stuff out. But I'm leaving New York City. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't stay here." You know. And then 3 months later, I was in Tampa.
That's crazy, man. New slogans from cuffs to Rolex. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
So is your mom here now, or is she still in New York?
Man, my mom, it's something about New Yorkers. You just can't get them out.
Yeah.
Like, so she's still there. She's in a great neighborhood now. She's like in Park Slope, Brooklyn. Like she's doing okay.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's so funny because I'm newer to social media, right? And I'll get like comments, like stupid stuff, and one person was like, "But your mom's still in Brooklyn," and in my mind, I'm like, "She's in Park Slope, dude. Like, she's okay."
Yeah, that's funny. So before we keep going and diving in more, I want to kind of pull it back and start with your lineage. I saw a cool story. You descend from a line of Mayan warriors. That's kind of badass. Politicians and activists. You grew up learning stories of like secret tribal wars fought by Guatemalans, indigenous people. What are some of those like stories that got passed down to you that stick, that are crazy? Any of them?
Yeah, and you
still kind of got it. I feel like the Mayan warrior mentality. Look.
Yeah, I mean that's what I love. You know, your podcast called Successful DNA,
yeah.
Right? And sometimes things are potentially in your DNA, right? And I think that one of my undergrad degrees is in biomedical science, and I love thermodynamics. And one of the things that you learn is how DNA is formed, right? And the way DNA is formed is these 5 essential nucleotides, right? And 5 in the Bible is a number of grace. So when it says that, you know, we live by grace, like legit, there's 5 essential nucleotides that somehow they're bonded together by carbon, and nobody knows how these things bonded up to create your DNA, that wraps around your chromosomes, that like dictate everything that you see and feel on your body, right? And so I say that to say that there's probably things that are locked in your DNA, maybe even passed down. I don't know. But the reality is I grew up, my grandmother came to New York City, man, like 50s, 60s. So she's an OG in New York City, right? They've been there for a while. And she would tell me these stories of like Guatemala, right? And like the capital city and like the jungle and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, we're in Brooklyn. Like, what are you telling me? So like, what is this going to do for me, right? But they just stick with you like through repetition, right? Your family stories, just like, oh yeah, I get it. Okay, right? And it didn't really hit me to go back and ask her more until I did a DNA test and I came out like 55% indigenous Mayan. And I was like, all right, well, maybe the stuff that you're saying has some merit to it. And so I come from this tribe is called the Quiche Maya. And the Quiche, the reason why they're significant, not to downplay any other tribes, but like one of the significance of that tribe is that they were the dominant tribe in Mesoamerica. So they were like the centers of civilization. So the capital cities were theirs, the centers of commerce, right? So when Pedro Alvarado came down into Central America, he fought my tribe, right? So we were like the last like free
Line of defense. Yeah.
warriors, right? We were the last ones. And so she would tell me these stories about like, look, like this is where you come from. And I'm like, but that's the rainforest. Like how did you get to the city? And she's like, well, this is what happened, right? So like your great-great-grandfather, he fought in the rainforest, right? Since the Spanish first came, like your family has been moving because of like escaping like subjugation or, and you know, these challenging times that like my family has had, and massive movements and migration will ultimately got me to Tampa, right? But if you look at Guatemala's history, it's interesting because they had these secret wars, and if you look up, the United Nations put out a Truth Commission on it, on how not to do a Truth Commission because of the things that came out, right? So in Guatemala, if you're in the opposing political party, the things that they would do is they would drug you, you'll go missing. But they find out the reason why you go missing is they'll drug you, they'll put you on a plane, and the plane will fly out into the Pacific and just dump you. And so that's the arena that my grandmother was raised within. And so she tried to do it politically. Like, so she was an orator, so she was trying to like do things the democratic way. But once you try doing things the democratic way and you start winning and the other team's losing, then they result to violence.
Yeah.
And that's how she found herself here.
And then she was one of 15 siblings and one of only 5 that survived.
Correct. So I don't know why they had a ton of kids, but starvation is real. Like, we're blessed. Like, I don't care what you got to say about this country. We're blessed, man. This is a blessed country. Even that we can talk smack about each other, even that we can talk smack about the president, whether you like him or not, that's a blessing. You have no idea. You go to places like Guatemala, you go on a podcast, you talk smack, you end up drugged and flailing over the Pacific. You don't really see that here, right? You don't. It's a different level. And even now, like, oh, but like they're doing all this stuff with like criminals and things like that. Yeah, but they alive. They're not getting drugged. You know, it's a different situation. And so we're blessed. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, she came over here because she was battling starvation, right? She saw imagine like seeing like your sibling 2 years old and you're 12 and it dies because it can't get fed, because you can't produce milk anymore. You can't produce milk because you're not eating. Mm-hmm. So you got a hormone imbalance. It's real things. What makes people want to come to this country and sacrifice everything that they have to get here. And so these stories are ingrained in me, because what I realized is that for the first time since, you know, probably the Spanish came to Latin America in 1492, my family has an opportunity to think about something other than survival or a threat, right? Like, finally, like my generation here, we can be creative. We don't got to think about food. We don't got to think about a war. We don't got to think about, you know, maneuvering the rainforest. Like, we don't got to think about political oppression. Like my family's here now, and I'm here now. What can I build now? Mm-hmm. Now I have time to actually create.
That makes sense. When you don't have to worry about starvation or war, like, your mind can go to other places and exactly. and be creative. It reminds me of a story. So my grandpa was kind of similar. So Pelzer, South Carolina, it's like west of Greenville, South Carolina. And even today, you would go there and you would think, am I in America at this point? It's kind of like third world, very, very poor area. So especially then, and it was on a river and there was a mill. I forgot what they made. So my grandpa was he was one of 12. Wow. And my great grandmother stayed at home with the kids. And then my great grandpa worked in the mill. And so I'm sure, he was also a sharecropper. He had 2 jobs. And so I'm guessing, with 12 kids, that was hard. And same thing, a lot of, not a lot to eat, a lot of issues going on. And the reason I asked my grandpa the same question you said, why they had 15 kids, I don't know. So I asked him, like, well, 12 kids, why did she do that? He was like, he called me Bubba. He said, Bubba? He said, she couldn't read or write. Like, she was uneducated. So the idea of contraception wasn't even like, it wasn't even like it was like an education thing for her and for them. And so, similar story, he was tired of just being poor. It's kind of a funny story and cool story. So he grows up with, he's one of the oldest. I can't remember exactly where he was in line, but he was one of the oldest, and he was just tired of living, being the father figure of the house while the dad's gone. And he was 16, and at that point in time, the Korean War had just started. And so it was like early 50s. I think Korean War was 1950 to 1954. Don't quote me on that. Look it up. Was it 1950 to 1954? So he's 16, and at that point in time, you had to be 18 to join the Army. But if you were 17, you could get a parent signature, and that'd get you in. And so, early 1950s in poor rural America, nobody has a birth certificate.
Wow.
So like he didn't have a birth certificate, so he goes to Army recruiter. He says, "How old are you?" My grandpa thought that 17 got you in, no matter what. So he said 17. He was like, "Cool, take this home. Your mom's, your parents got to give you permission to go." So don't forget, my great grandma can't read or write. So he goes home, "Hey Ma, this is something for school. I need you to sign." So she just, all she can do is sign her name. That's all she knows how to do. She can't read what she's signing. She needs something for school. She's signing her son to go to war. And he said next thing he knows, 6 weeks of basic training, and he's in the mountains of Korea on a train, in T-shirts and shorts in a snowstorm, freezing his ass off.
Wow.
And so at that point, he said, "Bubba," I was saying, "What the hell have I done?" So, what was it?
That's
53? 50 to 53? Cool.
Dang. At 17. Look at that.
16.
16.
He lied and said he was 17, but even though he was 16, and then because there was no birth certificates,
bless him.
but it worked out for him. I mean, kind of, he wasn't as successful as we'll get into with you, but a career in the Army where he got a pension because he was in there 20 plus years, and then a career with Goodyear. Michelin. So he got a pension from them too. So he got double pension from the Army and Michelin. And so,
but ultimately, I mean, he made a good choice.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, look, going to war, God bless him.
Yeah. So let's dive into early experiences. I want to go from here to what you learned through all that led you to what you know now and how you lead and how you've built this outstanding company. The early experiences that we've talked about, how did that shape your entrepreneurial spirit?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I lean on it daily because I come from a place of like gratitude. It never escapes me, right? Like my cars, all the like just material stuff. But even beyond that, like my family, like my wife, my children, my home, right? I have so much gratitude because I know what it's like not to have it. And I know what it's like to think about a future to be completely taken away from you. To be in the tombs and think, I'm going to prison. Take down the white picket fence, take down education, take all that stuff down because I'm going to go to prison. And that's going to be my reality. Right? What that does to your psyche, and to then be able to come out of that, like I approach it, number one, with gratitude. Number two, nothing really shakes me. Things blow up every day at work because what I do is I'm a consultant. I have to solve people's problems. Right? Every day, something went wrong. I'd rather solve these problems than the problems that I had before, right? Facing charges, facing convictions, maneuvering the street, right? At one point I was homeless, so it's like, do I buy a Metro card? Do I buy food? Whose living room can I sleep in? Whose car can I sleep in? what train has the longest route, so maybe I could sleep there. Got clothes and trash bags scattered throughout Brooklyn. You know, it's different. So now I'm always super grateful. Things are gonna go wrong all the time, and I'm just cool. And I really start thinking about what the Lord says is like, be anxious for nothing, but in everything in supplication and prayer come to the Lord. And that's what Jesus said. And so I like every man should model themselves after Jesus, but you have to consume his word daily. And whenever I feel that frustration, I really just look up to the Lord. I'm like, God, like, I love you, God. Like, I see what you did. Like, you got to remind yourself what God put you through. God, I love you. I thank you, God. You know, bank accounts in red. Payroll can't be met. You're going to go bankrupt in 5 days. You know, things that entrepreneurs go through. I'm like, all right, cool. We'll figure this out. It'll be fine. Be good. You know? And so, number one, gratitude. Number two, I really try not to get anxious about nothing. Right? I try not to like get out of frame. I try not to like get too excited. I'm a man, right? And sometimes, oh man, I'll tell you this story. This is stupid right here. So now I live in suburbia, right? And I coach a girls' flag football team, right? So this is my life now, very different. And so we go out to eat, Tampa Pizza Company, right after like practice. And then so I go. And I'm chilling with my wife, my kids, the girls from the football team, and we're just eating pizza. And through my periphery, I just see like two dudes glancing in this direction, just glancing. And I just start staring at them. And in my mind, like Brooklyn comes up and is like, what this dude's looking at, yo? Like, what's they gonna pop off? And I'm thinking to myself, I don't got no weapons on me. Like, are they gonna try to pop off on me? Or are they doing this? And then I look at one and I like mug him, and then he like looks away. And then I look at the other one and he's like still stays fixed on me. And then it looks away and I'm like, yo, who are these? And I'm looking around, I'm looking at my wife, I'm looking at my kids, and I'm thinking, you know, just wild thoughts, right? I got a gun in the car, I got this, I got that. I was like, and then I start getting excited, right? Like, dude, there's a TV at the top of my head. They were looking at the TV.
That's funny. How'd you figure that out? You just
because they were looking.
You finally figured it out. They're looking at you. Yeah.
But that's the stuff that I got to deal with, right? Even now, I'm 39. Yeah. Like that. And what I realize is that you can't kill that side of you. You have to allow it to live in harmony with you.
Your life's like the epitome of the verse, and I've said it on the podcast before, that Jesus says, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived the plans I have for you. Like if you could go back to 2006 and like the life you have now, you'd be like, nah, that's not even possible.
It's not. And, but to be honest, like, that's the kind of life I wanted to have. I would feel frustrated because of my surroundings. Like, I would feel frustrated. Like, I'm like, this isn't it, you know? And every day I kind of think about how blessed I am to have left, you know? And I'll even share this, right? Like 2 weeks ago, one of my best friends from high school got shot. He's 39 years old.
In Brooklyn?
In Brooklyn. This is still happening. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So if you wouldn't have got out, you'd probably...
Good dude.
Yeah.
He 39, got shot.
Innocent bystander, or?
Everybody has a different story. That's another thing. Everybody has a different story, right? I'm not going to say, you know, I love, respect him. I can't say that I kept up with him because once you leave an environment, you just got to let it go, man. You got to let it go. But then I see it on Facebook, and then I talk to some of my cousins from, you know, that are still back in Brooklyn and all these things, and I'm like, dude, but when he got shot 1:30 in the morning, like, come on, what you doing out there, man? Like, but this is what I'm saying is that you know, for those of you that are potentially listening and you may not see a way out, the first logical step is get out of that environment. like you got to fight like hell to put yourself in a different environment.
Yeah, I agree. Like, we won't go into it, but a tough growing up, a lot of trauma, a lot of issues. And I left South Carolina. I came here. I agree. You got to get out of it. One thing I struggle with, and this is kind of a personal agenda question. I don't know if any listeners will care, but I care. When it comes to parenting your kids. So one thing I struggle with is like, I wouldn't trade my past for anything because it made me who I am. You know, it made us tougher. It made us, we can handle a lot as entrepreneurs because we've been through a lot. And so like, it's not really that can shake us. But at the same time, I don't want my kids to live that life and have those issues, and neither do you. How do you and how do we create a lifestyle and parenting to where they can understand and not be gifted everything and not be given anything and be spoiled brats, but at the same time learn what you and I have learned in our past, and it's been different, but at the same time similar past of like tough times to great times. How are you handling that with your kids?
Hey man, I mean, number one, shout out to you for being a great dad, right? Because sometimes we don't get that as much, right? And so true fathers, like people that are pouring themselves into their family unconditionally, irrespective of like what you get back. Yeah. Because it is frustrating, right? You're gonna have issues. Like I love my wife, but we're gonna go through conflict, right? And they may say things to you that you're like, what? Like the things that I do, but that's the wrong. We can't say that, right? Or your kids might say stuff. I don't want that. And so we are in this realm that we have to love unconditionally, even when the person or the persons receiving it are saying that we're not, right? Like look at Christ, unconditional. But when he was here, they critiqued his love, right? The Jews said, no, you're supposed to, if you really love us, you should kill the Romans. Where's the army? Your love should come in the form of destruction, right? Like, think about that. And so us as men, and this is what I'm going to say to what you said is how do we lead? What do we give our children? Do we give our wives? Dude, the best thing we could do is give them Jesus. And the best way to give them Jesus and not necessarily shove it in their face is for us to pray to the Lord. God, you see what I'm going through. Lord, you see my anxieties. Lord, you see what my wife is going through. Lord, you heard how my child just spoke to me. I need you to maneuver in my life. Like I need your spirit to possess my home. I need you to possess me. I need you to possess my thoughts, the words that I say, my actions, how I move. That's the best thing that we can do is give them Jesus. Like that's the best thing.
I asked a similar question this is a while back. I just had to look it up in my text. 2020. His name's Tom Merritt. He's the owner of Ubi. They do like the uniforms. Like if you go to Chick-fil-A, they're wearing Ubi apparel. Publix, BMW, like all the apparel. Asked him a similar question. He said, because he has 4 kids and they're all 4 like extraordinary kids. And I was like, well, how'd you do that? You know, because at this point in time, I had a 6-month-old and that was it. Yeah. Now now I have a 5-year-old and 3-year-old. He said, thanks, Elliott. That's very humbling. Let me see what he said. The first secret for me was to marry up. There's a lot of little moments that God gives you along the way, and I would say the little moments make a collective sum and have a positive big outcome. At the end of the day, the kids don't belong to you anyway. God just gives them to you for a season to steward them the best you can and launch them into the world for his glory. Amen. That's a heavy responsibility, but also it takes the weight off your shoulders of trying to be a perfect parent. So that hit hard. And because it's tough, I want my kids to understand the value of hard work. I want the kids to understand the value of a dollar. But at the same time, here we are going on, 8 vacations a year, and have anything that they could possibly want. And so, they're not going to live the life that my grandpa lived and, your grandma lived. But at the same time, that turned us into who we are. So it's hard.
Amen. And that's why we need to, in our prayer life, we need to ask God to breathe his breath on our lives. Like, Lord, shine your face on our lives. My prayer for my children is like, Lord, I deliver my children to you. I want your vision for their lives to be enacted on earth. You know, like my son, and my son's not perfect. I love my son, but my son fasts. I didn't tell him to fast, but he sees when I fast. Mm-hmm. And so, because they're looking at us, so he sees like, oh, you know, daddy fasts. And like his grandfather was sick, and like we're making breakfast, and then I'm like, have a breakfast. He goes, no, I'm gonna fast. I'm gonna fast with my pops. So he gets better. I didn't tell him to. You know, he asked to be baptized. I didn't tell him to, because he sees people being baptized. He sees me talking about baptism, and so, but that's the Lord working in him, you know. And when I pray, I'm like, please, like, I deliver my children to you. I deliver my wife to you, right? Because our wives, they're in a tough spot, right? So because we're out here running and gunning, they got the 3 kids at home, screaming, running around. Like, that's important, right? And then when you come home, we're exhausted, she's exhausted, and she needs an outlet. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes we're the outlet. Here comes unconditional love. Okay, I'm going to eat it. Sounds good, whatever you need.
There's 5, I listened to a video the other day, there's 5 stages of a marriage. There's, newlyweds, then, new kids, newborns, and that, young kids age. Then you get like the middle school to teenage years of a marriage in your kids, and then empty nesters, and then like old age. And the most common stage for divorce is actually, you would think it'd be the newlyweds, is actually in that phase 2 of like new kids, because of how dang hard it is. And, we're blessed because we have a good support system, and we have, we can do Uber Eats whenever the heck we want to. And so like, there's like, it's hard, dude. Yeah, Marriage is hard. And like, I mean, my in-laws are a savior for us because we went on date night last night. Now we have a nanny. So like every Wednesday. So today we're going to lunch together, just me and her. And so we can do things because we have a support system where like, we used to foster, and like, that opened up my eyes. I won't go into too many details for the protection and the privacy of the family, but there was an individual, a lady in St. Pete, and she had 4 kids, 4 different dads, and no family. And so like the 4 kids went into foster care because she was young, and then she like, the story was, I don't know if it's true or not, that she went to Tallahassee for a party and then left her kids in St. Pete, and then like the cops came and took them and all that. And so, I built a relationship with her, and like I would never abandon and leave my kids like that, but like I can see where she would, because she had to travel by city bus, food stamps, no money, no childcare. Like, I mean, those were her decisions, don't get me wrong.
And she just left them in the house.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll be back in a couple of days.
With a 10-year-old, 3-year-old, 1-year-old, and like a newborn. And so,
oh my God! Yeah. And would they expect the 10-year-old to take care of the newborn?
I guess I don't know, but it's hard to look at her and judge her, knowing what I know now of like, it'd be hard if I was by myself and no money, and even with 2 kids, much less 4.
Yeah,
I'd be like, hell no. Right. So
it's not. It really isn't easy. So shout out to the moms, because it's difficult, and it's hard for us to put ourselves in that position just because like we're just not in that. And then we have the extra layer that we got to love unconditionally regardless, because that's our standard.
Yeah. Before we get into Omni, I want to, that's what we'll dive into next. I want to take 5 minutes. There's a huge story. in between moving to Florida, circa 2007 to 2017 when you started Omni. That 10-year period. Before we get into Omni, what was that 10-year period like? I know that's a long story, but in like 5 or 10 minutes, what can we?
I'll try to sum it up. I mean, I came.
You have 3 degrees, an MBA, like all kind of stuff going on.
Yeah, so I got to USF, and the reason why is because I was going to play football for them, right? So I was a journeyman. I had played at like junior college. I played at the University of New Mexico. I played different JUCOs. Like I was just journeyman. I was just trying to find a spot. At that time, I was playing fullback and linebacker. Like people don't use fullbacks anymore.
Yeah,
but
they did then.
So they did then. And so
you're the Mike Alstad of USF.
Yeah, right. So USF was recruiting me, but at the time they were D1 AA, and then I went to New Mexico, and then I saw that they went to the Big East, and so I decided to come and like walk on, right? And so I walked on to USF, and was going through the walk-on training. I kind of made the cut to join the team, but at that time, I decided that I didn't want to play football no more, which is so bizarre because I was like, right there, this is what I wanted to do. Like, I'll give you an example. So my dream was to come out into a tunnel, stadium packed, and like look up and see like my face and my name and like, you know, and like coming out the tunnel, people like Cesar, like that was like it was a recurring dream that I would have. It was very vivid, and I decided, I don't want to do this. Like my body's beat. I don't want to do the 5 a.m. wake up. I don't want to do the breakfast checks anymore. I had already been spending like 15 at the time. It was just a lot. So I decided, and I remember I told the coach, I was like, Coach, I think I'm just going to focus on studying. And he was like, you made the cut. Like we're about to start spring training. You sure?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, man, I'm over it. Like, I'm good. My body's beat at this time. And so a year later, I was student body president. Yeah, so I ran for president of student government, first position I've ever held in student government. Like student government in Florida is an animal because you get a salary. I think I paid like $30K a year. My budget was like $15 million. It was
what?
Yeah, it's insane. Like you get a building, like you fund departments. You get a golf cart. I'm like pulling up in a golf cart to classes. You're like sitting on the board of trustees.
You got it going on.
Yeah, it's like I had a great college experience, right? And so I was student body president. And that really launched my career because you're on the board with like trustees that the governor appointed. You're mixing with public officials that like I still have relationships with, like Congresswoman Castor. Like I met her when I was an undergraduate, when I was student body president. And so I become student body president, had a tremendous year. I was a biomedical science major. Then when I got into SG, I doubled up. Like I did political science and also econ. And I thought to myself, I can go to law school, I can go to med school, I can go to business, I can do whatever I want. Like I have options, right? Because I wanted options. Before I graduated, I was offered a position as a community organizer for a nonprofit that was working in like Suitcase City, so like in the hood. And so like my heart goes out to that, right? So I was a community organizer working with like gang intervention and prevention, like resource allocation, getting grants for the youth, right? Recidivism kind of initiatives, right? To keep the youth out of the system. And I started pouring myself into that. But I realized I was like one paycheck away from like people that I'm trying to help. And so it was great that I got that experience, but I wanted to understand the political system because whenever I was trying to impact the community, like I will get the same thing. Like I'll get a politician coming in, taking a picture saying, God bless you, like you're doing God's work, like good for you. And I'm like, but like, are you gonna do the thing that we need? And the reason why they don't do the thing is because they're disenfranchised. Like they don't vote, they have no power, they have no authority. So like what's in it for me to help? And so I kind of went on this journey where I want to be a part of the political process. So maybe I need to learn government. So I became a legislative aide at City Hall, and I understand how government moved. While being in government as a legislative aide, I realized that people in office aren't like the brightest, right? They just won an election. And then so I said to myself, well, I want to be a part of the mechanisms that get people into office. So I started working for political consulting firms. And I did everything from like school board districts to people running for president and everything in between. So I learned the mechanics of how to run for office, how they create the slates, how to raise money. And then I realized that's not the issue. Like I need to be able to navigate politics and who's coming in, understand how government moves. And that's when I got into government relations, which is just like a keyword for lobbying. But I lobbied for governments, so the county, right, special districts, the transportation authority. And I would use like my understanding of government and politics to yield specific things. So like I advocated for the use of Uber. So I helped to get Uber legal in Hillsborough County, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you do Uber Eats, there you go. So
Uber back to the Lightning game.
Yeah, there you go. Or if you ever jumped on a scooter in downtown St. Pete or in Tampa or in the state of Florida, that was a project that I work on. If you see the Teslas rolling around in downtown Tampa, it's a project that I work on. You're going to see autonomous vehicles going up and down, right? They had the pilot in St. Pete. They had the pilot in Tampa. That's a program that I worked on. All right. The rumors about a Hyperloop system from Tampa to Miami. That's one of the projects that I worked on. Language for the use of new technologies. So in the near future, there's going to be air taxis, Hyperloops, automated vehicles. I worked on the bills to create the studies for those technologies to be deployed so that they will be in compliance. Just like you use Uber now, right? I had to work on the policy and the charter and the city charter, county charter, work with the state team to create the policy that'll sustain the usage. And so while I was kind of making a sausage for a bunch of people, right, and specifically for government, I realized this. One year I brought back like $65 million to Hillsborough County in projects, right? So everything from autonomous vehicles to more buses to roads to right-of-way to beautification to pilot initiatives to ferries, like all in all about $65 million. My salary was $60K. And so it hit me, hey, it's great, I know how to make a sausage, but maybe I should do this on my own and see what happens. And then one of the very first projects I worked on was with Tesla. Mm-hmm. And so when people were like, oh, that's cute, like you got a company, who you working with, was like, oh, this company called Tesla Motors. And that kind of launched my career because like working alongside them introduced me to like Uber, introduced me to Bird, which is the scooter company, which introduced me to Hyperloop. And then at this point in my career, I'm at like over 450 like startups, governments, public officials, and everything in between.
Perfect. So that's a perfect segue into, it is Omni.
So I try to capture 10 years.
Pronounce it Omni, is that right?
Yeah, it's Omni Public.
So what is Omni Public? Let's start there.
Omni Public is a full suite public affairs firm. So it's public relations and government relations. So it's just the fancy way of saying lobbying, and I'm a lobbyist and I'm a publicist. But those two operating in tandem to each other is something called public affairs, right? And that's a part of a much broader consulting arena called systempreneurship. And what systempreneurship is, so think about it like this. You're an entrepreneur because you're navigating a specific market and you're trying to receive a specific objective. and aggrandize your market share within a specific market, and then the market has specific rules and levers that you kind of pull to receive a specific outcome. Systempreneurship is looking at multiple markets and multiple systems and moving them interdependent of each other to receive a specific objective. So for example, if I'm going to introduce rideshare like Uber, I have to navigate local government, state government, federal government. I have to navigate the incoming politicians. So who's going to be the next mayor, the next senators, the next reps, the next da-da-da-da, right? I have to navigate public opinion, right? How's the media's perception of my technology? I also have to navigate the community. So what is the public sentiment of what I'm trying to do? And then the way to kill that is if you try to create a committee of all these stakeholders. But the way to actually move them is move them without knowing that you're moving each one of them to derive an outcome that you want. And that's systempreneurship. And that's the consulting strategies that like I kind of deploy and what makes it distinctive. And I can't say that I made this up. I learned this at Oxford. Like the reason why I went to Oxford University was to do the consulting track specifically in systempreneurship and a non-market strategy so that I can give my clients the best advice possible.
That's crazy. It's like almost another language, I feel like, at this point. It's like Mandarin you just said.
But you get what I'm saying,
yeah.
right? As I say it,
Yeah.
and you got to think of it like this. As I say it, everybody at the highest levels are doing this.
Yeah.
So if you look at Jeff Bezos, right? He does systempreneurship because he has a lobbying team, he has a media team, and he actually bought a media.
What, New York Times?
Yeah, the NYT,
Yeah.
WashPo, like he owns that,
Yeah.
right? He has a platform, he has a streaming service, he has news, he has software, right? Elon Musk, he has droves of lobbyists. Each one of his companies has lobbyists, like droves. Like his lobbying team is insane. He has a media team. He bought a media platform. He does all these podcasts. Like at the highest levels, people understand these dynamics and they are deploying these strategies, right? I am the individual that typically deploys these strategies on their behalf, and that's why I'm here. Like that's what we do as a consulting firm. Is that.
So where are clients at now? Number of clients? What do you want to get revenue to end of this year? Where are things there?
So like we're still boutique, right? So we're always I'm super like, what's the word I want to use? Stable. And it's very like my line of business, when you're really good, it's predictable, right? So I'll know every year if I'm by myself, I'll make like 1.5, right? 1.7 by myself, right? If I bring in other consultants, I can double or triple that. So it's really just dependent on what the aim is. And one year I got very like bright-eyed and I'm like, let's take this thing to like 3 to 5 million. But you know what I realized? Because what I do is like knowledge management, is that if I get too big and I start to diminish my value, and since I'm solving such complex problems, you don't want to do that because people are coming to me because they're deploying like blockchain with the feds.
Yeah.
I can't just bump that off. And there isn't a lot of me in the world. Like typically the people that are operating at my level are working for McKinsey or Bain & Company, right? Because that's what they look for. And so I can't take on a ton of clients is what I'm saying. That's why I kind of pick and choose who I want to work with, the projects that I want to back up. We have other consultants in the firm, but depending on what your project is, like they'll be assigned to it. And the people that actually just work with me, I hand select.
Early on, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced, and like how'd you overcome those? 17, 18, 19?
Some of the biggest challenges that I faced with early on, like what do you mean when I was 17 or in 2017?
2017,
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
No. market. Like, you come in, you start a company, you're signing people on, right? You're doing PR, you're doing lobbying, you're doing consulting, and everything's good, but the invoice isn't getting paid on time. You know, they're on a net 15, net 30. I'm like, my bill's on like a net 1. like I can't do this, you know? So like the operational flow of entrepreneurship is something that I had to learn. Even though I studied it, went to school, it's different when your life's on the line.
Yeah.
It's very different when your life's on the line. Like, people don't understand, like, they glorify entrepreneurship, but we don't have a security blanket. There's no tight end. You mess up. And then put a family on top of that, put employees on top of that.
Employees' families.
Their families. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Like, people don't realize, like, there's a tremendous weight here. It's glorified and it's cool, but what we have is this, right? And not just being smart and intelligent, but then the grittiness to like go through it. And so my biggest challenge in 2017 was operational flow. Like, and then you realize you don't want to be the one chasing the invoices because it diminishes the relationship with the customer.
Yeah.
And so then, all right, well, I guess I got to get like an accountant or like a fractional CFO, right? Then you start hiring, and then you realize there's no KPIs, and you realize there's no culture, and then you realize they don't get along.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, I need HR. You bring in HR and you create the KPIs, you do all this stuff, and then everybody's coming to you, and there's no safety net, and there's no sieve. You're like, oh my God, I need a COO. And so you kind of go through this journey, right, where you gotta, you know, for me personally, you gotta go through it yourself. And so now I'm big on HR. I have my COO, I have my CFO. Every decision that I make is data driven. I look at a dashboard. I look at inputs, outputs. Like, am I supposed to be here? We didn't meet this. What does that look like December 31? Spits out a number. We go through hiring. I don't speak to anybody that wants to work with me.
Yeah.
Like, I legit, like, HR, here's the lead consultant. They pick the team. Go up to the COO if they're good. Like, legit, I don't speak to, like, now I got to a point where if you're coming into the firm and you're going to work with us, you probably just talk to me when we do like our weeklies or things like that. I only talk to like my high up people because I got to listen to them as to what's happening. Before, I would have like hand select certain people. They'll act a certain way when I'm in the office versus when I'm not, and they were like creating chaos when I'm not there, but I have blinders on. Just things that you got to learn, right?
And it's funny, like, there's so many little things that entrepreneurs run into that employees and people on the outside in don't even understand, or even things in the business. For example, you know, so let's see here. March was our biggest month ever in check-ins in terms of bookings. So people that checked in was over $3 million in bookings. And so, you know, someone's in the company like, oh my God, the company made $3 million. No, we didn't. Right? You know, so, you know, 15 to 20% of that, you know, we get from a management fee. So let's just say it's, you know, 15%. So 10 would be $300K. So you're talking, you know, 15 would be $450K. And so out of that $450K, okay, there's payroll. Well, payroll's, you know, $300,000 a month. Then the little things like, all right, every single email with Gmail, with G Suite, costs $12 a person.
$12 a head.
All right. So, all right, we get 100 employees. That's, you know, what is that, $12,000 a month?
For email.
Sorry, $1,200 a month. Yeah,
for email.
For an email. So $1,200 a month just to have an email in a drive suite. And so, you know, insurance. Okay, we have all right, when a guest slips and falls out of a property, we have to be protected, and so we have a 6-figure insurance bill every year, you know. And so it's like there's so many things, you know, that people don't think about, and so that's what's hard. That's probably one of the hardest things. And like people see like all the success. And by all means, we're having a lot of success, but it's like trying to, hey, there's also a lot of things that are a struggle. And you mentioned it earlier, like, you know, we carry the weight of obviously, you know, our wives have the hardest job of being at home with the kids, but like we carry the weight of that being able to be maintained. And not just that, like we care about our team members and we care about their kids. And, you know, like our vice president of marketing is my wife's best friend, and I knew her before we even hired her. So like, I love her for who she is and who her family is. And so like, I make decisions that protect her family too. Right. And there's a huge weight to be carried there. When it comes to Omni, like what are some of the biggest things and struggles you have with today? Like today, what are you going to, or this week or this month? What's the biggest pain points?
Company-wise or like
Company-wide,
client-wise?
yeah.
I would say right now, what we're going through hiring, right? So we're going through hiring at the moment and trying to build the right team. The challenge that we have in professional services is that our widget is our mind. It's knowledge, right? It's like how we operate. And so when we bring on team members, we're training them on how to like think and solve problems. Like we're not teaching them lobbying. We're not teaching them PR. We're training them methodologies. This is how you think about a problem, and you gotta fill in the spaces with like your creativity, because our clients are coming to us with challenges. Like everybody has a problem, right? Market share, I'm gonna IPO. I need to make sure that my IPO goes smoothly, the comms go smoothly. I'm doing a procurement job, which means like a B2G play. Like my government's going to be using my widget. I need to make sure that I'm in compliance, right? I need to do comms around it. So there isn't a lot of room for error. It's a big boo-boo if you mess up with these clients. Now, the biggest thing that I'm working on right now is building up the team to be able to sustain that. And that's what I'm doing right now. As far as clients, we're in legislative session right now. So half of them, their projects are going to get blown up, right? So half of them, I got to go back to them and say, hey, we're not going to get funded, or hey, I'm creating this creative mechanism to get your project funded, and maybe we're like at a 30% that this is going to happen. And those are tough calls to make. Half the calls, I'm like, oh, you got me in, like you did this thing. And the other half are like, what? What's going on? And I'm like, don't worry, it's like, I've been doing this 15 years. Like, we'll figure it out, right? And so that's kind of what my challenges are right now. And I would say my third one is we do relatively well in like sourcing projects, but oftentimes I don't take on a lot of it because I'm looking for people that have transformative solutions that are going to transform society. And sometimes it's good to make money, but I may not support it. Like I may not be a part of it. Like it just doesn't align with me, and I just don't take it on. And so finding the right type of client. So like if anybody needs not PR work, like any PR agency can like get you in the news. If you're really trying to shift public opinion because you have something that's transformative and you need laws to back it up, like that's me, right? Like that's me. Especially tech startups that are navigating regulation plus media plus the public, right? That's my arena, is emerging technologies. And here's something I'm going to share. So we're morphing into a consulting group. And my background is in transportation tech mobility. And what we're doing now is we're launching a tech vertical within Omni that's going to be AI, but interoperability, right? So what our tech is going to be doing and what I'm developing is a technology that if you have a drone, right, the drone can speak to multiple drones, irrespective of the hardware, for like crisis management. Oh my God. So shots fired, boom, drone comes out, surveys the area, right? Or maybe there's somebody out that you got to salvage a wreckage. out in the ocean. Aerial drone is deployed, nautical drone is deployed, and they're both communicating to each other. And so that's what I'm launching at this moment. I'm gonna be launching it. I'm going to be splitting time between Tampa and Harvard. I'm going to be doing a fellowship there for the Center of Public Leadership over the course of the next year, and I'm going to be launching the vertical there. So what's next for Omni is we're going into more of a consulting realm, and we're going to be tech enabled. But my ideal client there is going to be who I'm accustomed to working with, and that's government.
Yeah.
So we're going to be selling this to like cities, counties, and states.
Yeah. We could probably talk about Omni for the next 4 hours, and it'd be fun. I want to finish up with just some more like reflections for people listening in your life that they've been successful and want to maintain that success, or they have a drive to be successful and get out of the life they're in now. What are some of the things that you would tell, like, I don't know, college-aged Cesar, from what you've learned up to this point? What would you tell your old self?
I mean, what I would tell my old self, and maybe you're a college student right now or looking at this, or maybe you're not. Maybe you forgot that voice. Maybe you got out of college and you got the 9 to 5, and maybe you do well, but you're like, I think I was made for more. Mm-hmm. And what I would say is, if I was talking to myself, is just keep going. Like, a lot of people, when I would say the ideas that I would have, they would downplay me. Or they'll say, like, why? Aren't you doing too much? Like, you won't do that. Like, you won't. Like, you can't get into the schools like that. Like, you can't do that. This is not going to happen. You can't do this. You can't do that. I don't tell people my moves. Like, if I tell you my moves, it's done, and I'm working on something else. Because sometimes people are enraptured in their own reality, and their own reality may have limitations that you don't have in your reality. So for me, those things are attainable. For me, I see myself living like that. But for them, they can't see it because they live in a specific environment, right? And so I would tell myself, or I would tell anybody watching this, you got to keep going. Like, what were you made to be? Do you think that you were made to like just like hang out and chill and like 9 to 5 it? And maybe you are, because you're in what you love to do and you want to grow in that. But if you have a stirring, like if you got a stirring in your heart, like if you have an unshakable soul and it's like, I was made for something else, I wanted to change the world, I want to do this, then that's a calling. And you don't want to wait until the end of your life to realize that you didn't live up to the magnitude of your calling that God actually put in your spirit that you never did. You know? So my grandmother passed last year, right? So she passed away of cancer. And it was probably one of the hardest things, is to see my grandmother just dying slowly for 3 months. And like, we would rotate as to who's sleeping with her, so she's never alone. So she knows that we're always there. So I would be sleeping on the floor. Like, I would take a shift, sleep on the floor, so that she knows that we're there. And my grandmother will always say the same thing. I thought I had more time. I thought I had more time. I thought I had more time. And that hurt me. So we think we got more time, but we don't. We don't. Like, I was thinking about this 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to be 40 this year.
You're past the median of the average male in the U.S., 76.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 40. And I feel so thankful. Yeah, I can make more money. Everybody, money. But I got a beautiful wife. I got beautiful children. I've traveled the world. I've gone to the best universities in the world, like legitimately. Got clients all over the world, right? Maybe I got to lose 15 pounds. But like,
don't we all?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But like, I have so much gratitude where I'm like, all right, Lord, what's next for me? And you know what it is? The wisest version of myself. Like my calling is to, everybody's like, oh, best version of me. Oh, best version of me. Right? And it's like, the best version of you is the wisest version of you. Mm-hmm. I want wisdom.
Yeah.
And who ushers in wisdom is Jesus. Mm-hmm. He's literally called the wisdom of God. And so my thing is, I want to be wise. Because in wisdom, all these other things will come.
I couldn't agree with that more. And it's not by just happen to happen that the book of Proverbs, which is the book of wisdom, is the same amount of books as there is in a month. And so if you're listening and you want the wisdom from that,
Amen.
Go to Proverbs on March the 2nd. April the 2nd today. No, today's April 2nd. And go ahead and read the first 2 books, whatever day it is that you're listening to it. Start there, and it'll change your life.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Well, I'm going to be respectful of your time. Your hard stop's coming up. Dude, we're going to do this again at the end of this year.
I love that.
We got a lot more to talk about. I think the listeners are going to have so much value here. Thank you for coming, man. This was fun. Your story's incredible. Keep pushing. I'm pulling for you, bro.
Man, I'm impressed that you actually looked into it. Most people just... They'll just ask me random stuff, but you were like, dude, like this. Like you were probably the most prepared podcaster I've been on.
Well, that means a lot.
That like knew how to guide it and what you wanted, right? Because sometimes I'll come on and I realize they're asking me questions, but for them, which is cool, right? I love that. But they get into like, I'm asking you because I want to know. Like I'm in like put me on, and that's fine. I have nothing wrong with that. But you were probably like, you almost had like a journalistic slant to it.
And I didn't pay him to say that, guys. I promise. I promise. I'll get the invoice, I guess, later.
There you go.
Well, thanks for coming, man. We'll do it again into this year, and hope you have a great day.
Absolutely.
Thanks, bro.